The whistle shrieked and cut the afternoon clean in half. Malik Johnson slowed, chest heaving, sweat sliding down his temples and into his eyes. The field smelled like cut grass and hot rubber. Bleachers hummed with parents, classmates, and strangers. Men in polos, clipboards, sunglasses. Malik knew who they were. Everyone did. Again, Coach Bradley barked. Malik reset his stance. He'd run this drill 100 times. He launched, cleats biting turf, body loose and fast. He finished clean. Perfect. Silence. Coach Bradley stepped closer, close enough that Malik could smell coffee on his breath. "Is that all you've got?" the coach said, voice rising so the sideline could hear. "You think talent excuses laziness?" Malik blinked. Laziness. The word hit harder than any tackle. He glanced toward the bleachers, saw a man lean forward, pen poised. "A scout. I ran it right," Malik said, keeping his voice level. Coach Bradley laughed. "Sharp and ugly. Don't get smart. You people always think you know better." The field went quiet. Too quiet. Malik felt heat crawl up his neck, felt 100 eyes decide whether to look away. "Run it again," the coach said, louder now, pointing. "All sit. I've got backups who know their plays." Malik jogged back to the line, hands trembling despite himself. He heard the scratch of pens, the low murmur of judgment. One of the scouts raised his head, eyes narrowing, not at Malik, but at the coach. Malik set his feet, and somewhere behind him a phone camera clicked on. The whistle screamed, and Malik Johnson flinched even though he knew it was coming. Practice had stretched long into the afternoon, the sun dropping low enough to blind him whenever he turned toward the bleachers. Sweat soaked his jersey, clung to his spine, and his lungs burned in that familiar way that meant he'd given everything. He liked that feeling. It told him he belonged here. "Line up," Coach Bradley said. Malik jogged back with the rest of the receivers, eyes flicking toward the sideline. Men he didn't recognize stood apart from the parents. Clean shoes, clipboards, no school colors. Scouts. His stomach tightened. Coach Bradley paced in front of them, hands on hips. "We're running routes. Clean. Sharp. No freelancing." "Yes, sir," the group answered. Malik took his position. He focused on his breathing, on the weight in his cleats, on the exact angle he practiced since middle school. This mattered. One good look could change everything. The snap came. Malik exploded forward, cut hard, felt the air tear past his shoulders. The ball hit his hands like it always did. Secure. He turned upfield, finished strong. "Whistle." Coach Bradley shouted. Malik slowed, heart pounding, waiting for the nod. It didn't come. Coach Bradley walked onto the field. "What was that?" Malik frowned. "A slant, like you said." "That was sloppy," the coach said, loud enough for the sideline. "You jogged the break." "I didn't," Malik said before he could stop himself. The coach's eyes hardened. "Excuse me." Malik swallowed. He could feel his teammates watching the grass. "I ran at full speed." Coach Bradley laughed, sharp and mean. "You think effort is optional because you're fast." A murmur rippled from the bleachers. Malik's face burned. He searched the coach's expression for something, anything, that said this was just football. He didn't find it. Again, Coach Bradley said, "And this time, don't embarrass me." Malik reset. His hands shook. He hated that they shook. He ran the route again, faster, cleaner. The ball snapped into his palms. "Whistle." Coach Bradley clapped once, sarcastic. "See? That's what happens when you actually work." Malik stared at him. That was the same. The field went silent. Coach Bradley stepped closer. "What's your tone?" "I'm just saying." "You're saying you know better than me." The coach cut in. "That's a problem." Malik glanced at the sideline. One of the scouts had stopped writing. Another leaned toward him, whispering. Malik's chest tightened. "Coach," Malik said carefully, "I'm doing what you asked." Coach Bradley's voice rose. "You people always have an excuse." The words landed heavy, like a dropped weight. Malik felt them echo through his body. Around him, no one spoke. "Run it again," the coach said. "I'll sit. I don't need attitude on my field." Malik jogged back to the line. His vision blurred at the edges. He told himself to breathe, to finish, to survive this. Behind the bleachers, a phone lifted. A red light blinked on. Malik set his feet. The film room smelled like dust and stale popcorn. Malik took the third seat from the back, where he always sat, shoulders squared, hands folded tight between his knees. The lights dimmed. The projector hummed to life. On the screen, the field appeared again, too bright, too familiar. Coach Bradley stood at the front with a remote. "We're reviewing execution," he said. "Mistakes cost games." The first clip rolled. Malik watched himself explode off the line. Cut clean, catch secure. He felt a flicker of relief until the clip froze. Coach Bradley tapped the screen. "Right there. See that hesitation?" Malik leaned forward. There wasn't any. The room stiffened. A few heads turned, then turned back. The coach didn't look at him. Coach Bradley said calmly, "You think effort is just speed. It's discipline." Malik's jaw tightened. "Coach, you told us to." "Enough." The coach snapped, finally meeting his eyes. "This isn't a debate." A chair creaked. Someone coughed. Malik felt the familiar pressure settle on his chest, the kind that told him to swallow words before they swallowed him. The clip resumed. Another freeze. Another critique. Always Malik. Always tone, posture, attitude. Never the root. Never the catch. After 15 minutes, Coach Bradley clicked the lights back on. "Some of you think you're bigger than the program," he said, scanning the room. "Scouts don't care about excuses. They care about obedience." Malik felt heat rise in his face. He looked down, so his hands shaking again, forced him still. Practice broke early. In the hallway, teammates moved around him like he was invisible. "Yo," Jamal whispered as they reached the lockers. "You good?" Malik shrugged. "I ran it right." Jamal nodded, quick and nervous. "I know. Just keep your head down, man." That phrase followed Malik all the way home. His mother listened in silence as he told her what happened, her hand stilling on the kitchen counter. The house smelled like fried onions and garlic. Normal. Safe. He hated how much he needed it. "He said that?" she asked. Malik nodded. She exhaled slowly. "Did anyone say anything?" "No." She closed her eyes. "Baby, scouts were there. This could affect." "I know," Malik said, sharper than he meant. He softened his voice. "I know." His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Is this you?" A video loaded. Shaky at first, then clear. Coach Bradley's voice, loud. "You people always have an excuse." Malik stared at the screen. His stomach dropped. "Mom," he said quietly. She watched, hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God." By evening, the video had 100 views, then 1,000. Comments stacked fast, some supportive, some dismissive, some cruel. Malik stopped reading when his chest started to ache. The next morning, he was called into the athletic office. The assistant principal smiled too much. "We want to get ahead of this," she said, folding her hands. "Context matters." Malik sat straight. "Context is what he said." She nodded. "Coach Bradley is demanding. He pushes players. That's his style. He singled me out." She tilted her head. "Perception can be tricky." Coach Bradley leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I treat everyone the same." Malik met his gaze. "You don't." The room went quiet. "We'd advise you to avoid social media," the assistant principal said gently. "Let us handle it." "Handle what?" Malik asked. "The situation." He stood. "My future is a situation." Outside, a scout waited near the parking lot. A tall man with silver hair and tired eyes. "You okay, son?" he asked. Malik hesitated. "I ran it right." The man studied him. "I know." Hope flickered, small, dangerous. Behind them, the school doors closed. The scout room was quiet, smelling faintly of leather and coffee. Malik's performance, both on the field and in the video, was the only topic of conversation. 3 men leaned over a polished table, clipboard resting on the edge, pens poised. Outside the window, the sun spilled across the parking lot, mocking the tension inside. That kid's raw talent, the youngest scout said, tapping the corner of a page. Fast, hand solid, route running looks instinctive. He glanced at the older men, hopeful. If the coach didn't interfere, he'd be top of the class. The older scout, gray at the temples, shook his head. Coach Bradley has a reputation. High expectations, tight control. This program doesn't tolerate pushback. You saw the video. I did, said the middle scout, arms crossed. And I saw the way he singled him out. That's not just discipline. That's intimidation. The youngest nodded eagerly. Exactly. And scouts are watching. We're supposed to see skill, not a kid being bullied. The oldest tapped his pen on the table. But you also see the environment. The kid's smart. He knows it's a minefield. If he makes a wrong move, he's done. Scholarship offers can vanish before the season ends. A pause filled the room, heavy as fog. So what do we do? The middle scout asked. We want him. But can we risk a family and player backlash? This program eats young talent when it feels threatened. You can't ignore the talent, the youngest said. But we document everything. We protect ourselves. If the kid leaves, the evidence is there. If he stays, well, we watch carefully. Down the hall, Malik waited outside the locker room, unaware the scouts were dissecting his future. His phone vibrated again. Another text. They're talking about you. He swallowed hard. His heart pounded, fear and adrenaline combining into a tight knot. The next scrimmage started under a low, gray sky. Malik lined up, gloves tight, heart hammering. Coach Bradley didn't yell, at first, but the scrutiny was heavier, sharper. Every move was scrutinized, every hesitation magnified. You're on, Coach Bradley said, voice flat, no warmth. Malik ran his first route. Clean, smooth. The ball hit his hands like a clockwork metronome. Perfect. Again. Coach Bradley barked off the play, loud enough for the sideline. Malik didn't argue. He sprinted back. He caught sight of the scouts in the bleachers. One had his arms crossed, expression unreadable. Another scribbled notes, brow furrowed. Malik realized something bitter. They weren't watching him. They were watching Coach Bradley, too. During halftime, Malik's teammates clustered around, murmuring excuses and explanations. Jamal leaned in, voice low. Man, he's looking for any excuse to bench you. I know, Malik said. I ran every route right. Yeah, Jamal whispered. But the video, it's out. People are talking. Malik nodded, stomach churning. The moment that had begun as humiliation was morphing into leverage, unpredictable and dangerous. He could feel the weight of opportunity and threat pressing at once. Coach Bradley stormed over, red-faced. Who told you to stop focusing? He barked. I don't care who's watching. Discipline comes first. Malik's legs ached, lungs burning. I'm running the routes, sir, he said quietly. Bradley leaned in, eyes narrowing. We'll see about that. Malik's chest tightened. He looked toward the scouts. One had lifted his notebook, marking a line. Another's pen hovered midday. Neither moved to intervene. For the first time, Malik felt it, the cruel truth of this world. Talent alone didn't protect him. His life, his scholarship, his dream of college football were now bargaining chips in someone else's game. And the scouts? They were watching everything. Malik exhaled through his nose. He would finish this scrimmage. He would survive. But he knew, deep down, the real game had already begun. The whistle blew, harsh and shrill. Malik tightened his grip on the ball. Each eye on the field, each pen scratching paper, marked a new battlefield. The next play would decide more than stats. It could decide his entire future. Malik's locker smelled of sweat and liniment. He sat on the bench, helmet in his lap, letting the noise of lockers slamming and teammates shouting fade into the background. His mind replayed the film room, the scrimmage, the scout silent calculations. Every movement, every line on the clipboard, every subtle glance. It had become a code he had to decipher. Jamal slid onto the bench beside him, careful not to touch him. You okay? He asked. Malik exhaled. Tight. I'm holding it together. Coach didn't single me out today, Jamal said, but I've been around. He's got patterns. You're not the first. Malik looked at him, eyes narrowing. Patterns. Jamal leaned closer, lowering his voice. You think this is just you? Nah. Bradley's been doing this for years. Some of the older guys told me stories. Ridiculous drills, racial digs, public humiliation. Nobody says a word cause you don't want to end up like them. Kicked off the team or blacklisted from scholarships. Malik's stomach sank. Why didn't anyone report him? Because the system protects him, Jamal said bluntly. School, boosters, alumni, they love the wins. They love the brand. No one cares about a kid getting trash on the field if it doesn't mess with the scoreboard. Malik swallowed hard, letting that settle. So, what am I supposed to do? You survive, Jamal said, shrugging, and you wait for your opening. A former player, Trey, shuffled by. He had been an assistant last year and knew the inner workings. He paused, leaned on the metal bench. I'm telling you, Malik, Bradley runs on fear. Everyone thinks they are next in line to be crushed. Stick to your craft. Keep your head down in front of him. But never forget, document everything. Malik nodded. The phone buzzed again. Another message. A video. More angles of the scrimmage. The coach's voice booming, his words dripping with control. Malik felt the familiar fire in his chest. That night, Malik sat at his kitchen table, notebook spread, watching video clips, writing notes. His father poured coffee without speaking, the mug warm against his palms. You're thinking of fighting back, his father said finally. Malik looked up. I have to. I can't just let this define me. His father nodded slowly. Just remember, the system is bigger than one game, bigger than one coach. Don't let it destroy you. The next day, the hallways buzzed with whispers. Malik noticed teachers' sidelong glances, students' cautious stares. Rumors had spread. His name was spoken quietly, cautiously, sometimes with admiration, sometimes with pity. During study hall, Malik pulled Jamal aside. You said the older guys knew. Who else? Jamal glanced around. A couple of assistants. A guidance counselor maybe. But they all play the same game. Keep your head down. Make it through. Malik clenched his fists. So no one's willing to stand up. Some try, Jamal said. They get burned. Malik left study hall, the echo of footsteps in the empty hallway feeling like the rhythm of a drum he couldn't ignore. He had to map the battlefield. Names, positions, alliances. Silence was a weapon, but also a cage. That afternoon, Malik met with Ms. Reynolds, the guidance counselor. She pushed up her glasses, careful, measured. Malik, I know what's happening on the field. I've seen the videos. He stiffened. Then why haven't you said anything? She exhaled, tense. I can advise. I can guide. But the administration, they protect him. If you go public now, it could backfire. You need to document. Collect proof. Protect yourself before you strike. Malik nodded, heart racing. Every word felt like a lifeline in a storm. Back on the field that evening, the bleachers were empty. Only the sunset painted long shadows across the turf. Malik ran drills alone, breath ragged, cleats biting into turf, ball tight in his hands. He imagined the coaches, the scouts, the administrators, all watching, all judging, all part of a system that measured him not just by talent, but by obedience, endurance, and resilience. And somewhere deep inside, Malik knew the truth. He couldn't just survive. He had to learn the code. He had to play it smarter than anyone expected. And when the right moment came, he would strike, not with anger, but with evidence, skill, and the quiet force of someone who refused to be erased. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving only shadows stretching across the empty field. Malik picked up the ball, spun it in his hands, and felt the weight of the fight ahead. It wasn't just about football anymore. It was about justice. It was about being seen. It was about winning in a game that had never been fair. Malik woke to the buzz of notifications. His phone vibrated relentlessly, screen lighting up with dozens of messages, shares, and alerts. Overnight, the video from practice had gone viral. Clips from multiple angles circulated on social media, each capturing Coach Bradley's words, each freeze frame a testament to humiliation. At first, Malik scrolled cautiously, trying to shield himself from the tide. The first comments were supportive. This kid's got courage. Talent wasted if schools ignore this. But then came the cruel ones. Quit crying, kid. Typical. You think you're special. He should respect authority. Malik felt his stomach twist. He had anticipated ridicule, but the sheer volume, the reach, it was overwhelming. His mother hovered behind him, hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," she said softly. "Look at all these people noticing. They are seeing what you've been through." Malik nodded, but he couldn't shake the gnawing fear. Scouts, administrators, parents, all eyes were on him now. The whispers and sidelong glances at school the next day confirmed it. He was summoned to the principal's office. The room smelled of Polish and faintly of paper. Principal Sanders sat behind a desk cluttered with files, looking calm, professional, but distant. Coach Bradley leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Malik," Sanders began, "we are aware of the video circulating online. We take these matters seriously." Malik's chest tightened. "It wasn't just a matter of me being late on a route. He singled me out, publicly humiliated me, and made comments, racial comments." Coach Bradley snapped, voice low but sharp. "I treat all players the same. Discipline is discipline." Sanders held up a hand. "Coach Bradley, please." "Malik, we are investigating. But understand, the media and social platform complicate things. We advise discretion. No further posts." Malik swallowed, anger and frustration mixing with fear. "I've been careful, but people should see what's happening. Not just me. They should see how the program operates." Bradley's eyes narrowed. "You're making this about race now? That's inappropriate. You're overreacting." Malik felt a flicker of panic. Overreacting? The word stung, not just because they were untrue, but because they echoed a lifetime of being dismissed. The following day, reporters arrived outside the school gates, microphones poised, cameras clicking. Students whispered, some supportive, some mocking. Malik's teammates avoided eye contact, uncertain, fearful. The film had turned his private struggle into public debate. At home, Malik's father watched the news clips with him. The anchor's voice was steady, professional. A high school football player's practice video goes viral after allegations of mistreatment by the head coach. Malik felt exposed, raw. Every frame of the video was a public spotlight on his skin, his body, his voice. And yet, beneath the fear, there was a spark, proof that truth could not remain hidden. He returned to practice, the field now feeling smaller, charged. Coach Bradley's presence loomed larger, like a shadow of authority made heavier by scrutiny. Every word was measured, every whistle, a test. "Malik, front and center," Bradley barked. His voice no longer carried just authority. It carried challenge, a thinly veiled threat. Malik jogged to the spot, muscles tense, mind alert. The rest of the team watched quietly, unsure whether to cheer, to stay silent, or to distance themselves. "You've attracted attention," Bradley said, tone icy. "Don't forget, talent isn't enough. Discipline matters." Malik nodded, jaw tight. Inside, he bristled. Discipline? That was what had been twisted against him, a weapon rather than guidance. During breaks, whispers reached him. Students debated, teachers exchanged glances. Everyone seemed to know, but no one openly took a side. The tension was suffocating. By the week's end, Malik realized something critical. The moment had escalated beyond football. It was no longer just practice or drills. It was about accountability. His own career, the integrity of the program, and the principle of fairness were all intertwined. Late that night, Malik uploaded a statement on a verified account, concise and measured. "I love this game. I respect my coaches. But talent should be nurtured, not humiliated. Everyone deserves to be seen for what they can do, not who they are." The post went viral within hours. Shared, commented on, and debated. Malik felt a surge of fear again, loss of control, exposure, but also a strange, trembling empowerment. Across town, the first investigative journalist called, asking for interviews, wanting details, wanting context. Malik agreed cautiously. Every word now mattered. Every sentence carried weight beyond the field. Coach Bradley, meanwhile, grew quieter, his usual bluster replaced by tight lips and sharp glaze. The balance of power was shifting, though Malik knew the fight was far from over. He returned to the empty field that evening. The bleachers were deserted, the floodlights cold. He jogged, ran his routes alone, each step echoing with intention, not obedience. The whistle shrieked in the distance, carried by wind, or perhaps imagination. Malik tightened his gloves, heart pounding. He knew the world was watching, and now he wasn't running for approval. He was running for justice. The ball left his hands with perfect trajectory, landing exactly where it should. And somewhere, beyond the shadows, someone was recording. The game had changed. The conference room smelled like fresh paint and polished wood, a sterile space meant to convey authority and control. Malik sat at the far end of the long table, shoulders squared, hands folded in his lap. Across from him, the school board, administrators, and two legal advisors waited, silent but expectant. Coach Bradley leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a tight smirk playing on his lips. "Malik," the superintendent began, voice even, "we understand the recent video has caused concern." "Yes," Malik said quietly. "Concern for me, for the way the team is run, for how players are treated." A board member shifted. "We've reviewed the footage. Coach Bradley insists his actions were disciplinary, standard practice." Malik's jaw tightened. Discipline isn't yelling racial slurs and singling one player out. It's guiding players, encouraging them, respecting them. Bradley's eyes narrowed. Respect is owned. This is football, not a daycare. Malik's hands clenched into fists, but he kept his tone even. "I run my place. I run the routes, catch the passes. I've been here since freshman year. But you ignore the treatment. You protect him because it's convenient, because winning matters more than fairness." A legal advisor cleared his throat. "Malik, your allegations are serious. If we pursue them, there could be ramifications. Are you prepared for that?" Malik exhaled. "I don't want to destroy anyone. I want accountability. I want a chance to play without fear, without being singled out for who I am." Bradley slammed a hand on the table. "You think this is about race? You're trying to ruin a career, a program, because you're sensitive. That's dangerous." A young board member leaned forward. "We're here to ensure fairness. But Malik, you have to understand, this could jeopardize scholarships, your team standing." Malik's heart raced. He had known this risk. Every public step carried potential fallout. "I understand," he said, "but staying silent would cost more. My future, my dignity, my ability to play without fear, those are costs I can't accept." Outside the room, whispers traveled through hallways like wind through empty corridors. Coaches, players, parents, everyone seemed aware of the high-stakes confrontation inside. Some offered silent support, others avoided eye contact. After the formal meeting, Malik walked down the hall alone. The weight of attention pressed on him from every angle. Phones buzzed, reporters called, scouts had questions. He felt as though he was standing on a tightrope, balancing between opportunity and catastrophe. Back in his room that night, Malik's mother sat on the edge of his bed. "You're carrying too much," she said softly. "This isn't just football. It's politics, power, fear." "I know," Malik replied. "But if I don't speak, nothing changes. If I stay silent, he keeps doing this to the next kid." His father nodded from the doorway. "You're brave and careful. That combination matters more than strength on the field right now." The following day, the first scouts arrived to watch a private workout. Malik's heart pounded as he jogged onto the field. Their expressions were unreadable, pens hovering, notebooks open. Coach Bradley stood on the sideline, arms crossed, a storm behind his eyes. "You're up," Bradley barked. Malik ran, each route precise, each cut sharp. Sweat stung his eyes. Every movement was observed, measured, critiqued. He could feel the tension between authority and talent crackling in the air like static. During a pause, one scout approached him. "You're under pressure," the man said quietly, not taking notes. "But you're handling it. Keep focus." Malik nodded. The words were small, but they bolstered him. Each controlled breath reminded him why he endured the shouting, the humiliation, the coded silences of the locker room. He wasn't just running for the play anymore. He was running to reclaim his voice, to prove that injustice wouldn't silence him. Coach Bradley's voice cut across the field. "Stop showing off. You're making yourself look foolish." Malik ignored it. He ran the next route, caught the ball clean, pivoted sharply, and delivered a textbook spin. The scouts scribbled, muttered among themselves. Bradley's face flushed. After practice, Malik's teammates approached cautiously. Some offered quiet nods of support. Others avoided his gaze entirely. Jamal leaned in. "Man, you're killing it out there. They can see the difference." Malik exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly. "Difference doesn't mean they'll protect me, but it counts." By evening, the conversation shifted. School administrators began deliberating over potential disciplinary action. Parents called to ask questions. Malik's phone was constant, buzzing with updates, inquiries, encouragement, and warnings. He understood now that the pressure wasn't just on the field. It was everywhere, in the hallways, on the phone lines, in the emails, in every judgmental glance. Every decision carried consequences. He lay on his bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking of Coach Bradley's face, the scouts' pens, the endless weight of expectation. The game had evolved from football to strategy, endurance, and moral resolve. And Malik knew, deep in his bones, that when the moment of truth came, he had to be ready, not just to play, but to endure the storm. Because one wrong move could destroy everything, but one right move could change everything. The investigation began quietly, under the hum of fluorescent lights and the rustle of papers. Malik sat across from an independent investigator, a middle-aged woman with calm eyes and a voice that carried authority without intimidation. She had seen countless reports, interviews, and allegations. Yet, the moment she saw Malik's phone, her gaze sharpened. "Can you walk me through this?" she asked, tapping the screen. Malik nodded. He replayed clips, pointed out each instance of public humiliation, the exact phrasing Coach Bradley had used, the reactions of teammates frozen in uncertainty. Every word mattered. Every expression, every pause, every subtle gesture, proof of a pattern. "You were targeted repeatedly," the investigator said, jotting notes. "Not just one incident, but a consistent approach." "Yes," Malik said, "and it's not just me. Others have experienced it, but no one wants to speak. Fear keeps people silent." The next day, former players came forward. Trey, Malik's former teammate, gave an account of his own experiences, brutal practices, public shaming, racial undertones in critiques. Assistant coaches corroborated details, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. The evidence piled up: videos, witness statements, text messages, and emails. Patterns became clear. Coach Bradley's authority wasn't just exercised through discipline. It was wielded to intimidate, control, and maintain a hierarchy that protected certain players while marginalizing others. Malik was called to testify before the school board and investigators. His hand shook slightly, but his voice was steady. "I love football," he said, looking at the panel, meeting each gaze evenly. "I respect my coaches, but respect is earned through fairness, not fear. I can't succeed, and neither can others, if intimidation is part of the system." He recounted the viral practice, the weeks of scrutiny, the whispers, the coded silences of teammates. Each moment carried weight. Each detail painted a larger picture. Bradley was present, silent, face taut. For the first time, Malik noticed cracks, subtle twitches, flickers of doubt, a flickering of authority that was no longer absolute. Outside the building, cameras waited, lights flashing intermittently. Reporters murmured, some scribbling notes, others whispering into phones. Malik felt their presence, but inside the hearing room, he focused solely on the facts. A witness, a parent, came forward, confirming Bradley's pattern of favoritism and public humiliation. Emails surfaced showing complaints that had been ignored. The school administration's attempt at neutral statement backfired, exposing the culture of protection around Bradley. One by one, the walls that had sheltered the coach from accountability crumbled. He shifted in his chair, trying to maintain composure, but every testimony, every document, every corroborating witness chipped away at his facade. Malik's final words resonated. I'm not seeking revenge. I want the truth to matter. I want fairness, so no one else suffers like I did. The room was silent. Even Bradley's supporters remained still. By mid-afternoon, the school board convened privately. Decisions were made swiftly. Coach Bradley was placed on administrative leave pending further disciplinary action. The announcement hit the news outlets within hours, headlines scrolling across screens. High school football coach placed on leave amid allegations of racism and intimidation. Malik exhaled, relief mingling with lingering tension. The fight wasn't over. There would be appeals, lawyers, and lingering scrutiny, but the first barrier had been broken. The power of the system had been challenged, and a single voice, amplified by evidence and courage, had made the difference. Back home, Malik sat with his parents, the weight of the last week settling into his chest. His mother reached out, fingers tracing his arm. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "I had to," Malik whispered. "Not just for me, but for everyone who couldn't speak." The next morning, the school issued a public statement acknowledging the investigation's findings and pledging to implement training programs, accountability measures, and channels for reporting abuse. Media outlets highlighted Malik's bravery, framing him as a young man who refused to remain silent. Scout interest intensified. One scout, previously hesitant, called Malik directly. "We've seen how you handle pressure. Skill, composure, courage. That's rare." Malik smiled faintly, realizing that the exposure, once terrifying, had opened doors he hadn't expected. Yet, he also knew the emotional cost: sleepless nights, stress, judgment from peers, and the knowledge that some relationships could never be repaired. Coach Bradley, meanwhile, faced scrutiny, legal counsel, and public condemnation. Former allies distanced themselves. His authority, once unchallenged, was fractured beyond repair. Malik returned to the empty field that evening. The floodlights hummed softly. He ran drills alone, letting each step remind him that power could be challenged, that truth could outlast fear. As he caught the final pass and pivoted sharply, he felt it. The balance had shifted. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in that moment, Malik knew he could face the future with a mix of pride, resilience, and awareness that the fight, though exhausting, had been worth it. The field lay quiet, the evening cool against his skin. Somewhere beyond the shadows, cameras and phones might still be recording. But Malik was no longer running for approval. He was running for himself, and for every silent witness who might one day find their voice. The halls of Jefferson High were quieter than usual, a tension hanging like a storm about to break. Word had spread. Coach Bradley was on administrative leave. Rumors whispered through classrooms, gym lockers, and cafeteria tables. Some students celebrated quietly. Others avoided Malik, unsure whether proximity meant support or controversy. Malik walked through the hallways, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes scanning faces. He noticed the subtle gestures, a nod from a former teammate, a hand raised in cautious acknowledgement, and the careful silence of those who had once avoided confrontation. The balance had shifted, but unease lingered. The athletic office was transformed. Files were moved, old records examined, and meetings scheduled with district officials. Teachers and assistants spoke in hushed tones. The program structure was under scrutiny, revealing cracks in the facade of authority Bradley had built. Jamal approached Malik near the lockers, a tentative smile on his face. "Feels different, huh?" Malik nodded. "It does, but it's not fixed. Not yet." "No," Jamal admitted, "but at least people can see now." Outside, media vans lined the streets. Reporters spoke with parents and students. Headlines highlighted Malik's courage. Student-athlete challenges abusive coach. Justice begins at Jefferson High. Social media continued to buzz. Clips of the viral practice were still circulating, discussions and debates flowing nonstop. Malik felt both proud and exposed. Every eye seemed to carry judgment, praise, or expectation. At home, Malik's parents tried to offer normalcy. Dinner was quiet, punctuated by occasional conversation. His mother set the table carefully, while his father leaned against the counter, reading the news on his phone. "You handled yourself well today," his mother said softly. "I did what I had to," Malik replied, fork hovering over his plate. "It's just everyone's watching now." and I don't know if I can relax. You can, his father said, but only when you decide. This is your fight, Malik, not theirs. The next week, the school board convened a public meeting. Parents, alumni, and students crowded the auditorium. Cameras flashed. Questions were asked, answers given, and promises made. Programs of accountability, inclusivity, and anti-harassment policies were announced. Malik sat quietly in the front row, listening to the pledges. Some felt empty, some felt sincere. Coach Bradley, present but silent, faced a first wave of scrutiny from former allies. Parents who had once defended him now questioned his methods. The once untouchable authority figure now navigated a landscape of fractured trust. Emails and statements circulated, revealing prior complaints and patterns of behavior that had been ignored or minimized. Malik noticed a subtle shift in teammates' behavior. They approached him with quiet respect, but some remained distant, uncomfortable acknowledging past complicity. He didn't mind. Change was messy. Growth was uneven. Trust had been earned, not assumed. Later, in the empty gym, Malik threw passes alone. The rhythm of the ball, the slap against his gloves, the bounce on the polished wood, it all felt grounding. He thought about the weeks of scrutiny, the social media storm, and the pressure that had come from every corner. Each toss was a reminder he had endured, and now he could move forward. Jamal walked in, tossing the ball up in one hand. "You okay out here?" he asked. "Better," Malik said. "The fight isn't over, but I can breathe." Jamal nodded, spinning the ball on his finger. "People notice, not just the scouts or the media. They see your courage. That counts." Malik caught a pass and pivoted sharply. "It counts a lot, but it doesn't erase what happened." "No," Jamal admitted, "but it does mean things will be different, hopefully for the better." That evening, Malik returned home, checking messages. Scouts had reached out with tentative offers and encouragement. Universities expressed interest, now fully aware of his talent and character. The exposure had come at a cost, emotional exhaustion, public scrutiny, but doors had opened. He sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Coach Bradley. Once untouchable, the coach's authority was now fractured. Former allies distanced themselves. Social media tracked every misstep. The program itself faced accountability measures that could reshape the culture for years. Malik exhaled, relief mingled with a lingering ache. Justice had arrived, imperfectly but undeniably. He had spoken truth to power, endured public scrutiny, and survived the storm. As night settled, Malik reflected on the subtle victories, the quiet support of teammates, the acknowledgement from scouts, and the accountability finally demanded from those who had wielded power without question. Each was a step towards something better, not just for him, but for every player who would come after. He picked up his cleats and laced them tightly, the ritual grounding him. Outside, the field waited, the night air crisp and still. Each pass thrown, each sprint run, was a reminder that resilience mattered as much as talent. And Malik knew one truth, sharper than any whistle or critique. Courage was contagious, and justice, once sparked, could never be fully silenced. The floodlights clicked on, illuminating the turf. Malik gripped the ball and ran, each step carrying weight, hope, and a future rebuild from the ashes of fear. Graduation day arrived like a slow sunrise, warm and heavy with anticipation. Malik adjusted the black cap on his head, tassel brushing against his temple, and tugged at his gown. The auditorium buzzed with excitement, families chattering, cameras clicking, and classmates exchanging last-minute goodbyes. Yet Malik's mind was elsewhere. He thought about the field, the practice, the scrutiny, and the lessons carved into him over the past weeks. As he walked to his seat, he noticed a subtle nod from teammates. Some still hesitated, unsure how to acknowledge what had happened. Others, braver, gave him small, proud smiles. Malik met their eyes with quiet acknowledgement, recognizing the unspoken bond forged in shared trials. The principal's speech began, ceremonial and polite, lauding the class for their achievements. Malik barely heard it, focusing instead on the line of graduates, each step forward a march toward new beginnings. When his name was called, he rose, heart hammering, and walked to the stage. The applause was measured, some clapping harder than others. Malik's gaze swept the audience. his parents beaming, Jamal clapping enthusiastically, even a few teachers giving him subtle nods of pride. He reached the podium. The microphone squeaked as he adjusted it. Malik took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past months pressing against the polished wood. "Thank you," he began, voice steady, carrying across the room. "This year taught me more than any playbook, any coach, or any drill ever could. It taught me about courage, about fairness, and about the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when it seems like the world isn't watching." A hush settled over the auditorium. Malik could feel the eyes of the audience, the weight of expectation, and the lingering echoes of past injustice. "I want to acknowledge my teammates," he continued. "Some of you stood by silently, some of you spoke, some of you learned alongside me. Change is never easy, and accountability is never simple. But it's necessary. Thank you for learning that with me." He paused, letting the words sink in, feeling both relief and the sting of sacrifice. The months of public scrutiny, emotional exhaustion, and stress had left marks that wouldn't fade overnight. Yet here, in this moment, there was clarity and closure. Malik stepped down, shaking hands with administrators and fellow graduates. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment, but he barely noticed. He was focused on the future, on the promise of opportunity that had emerged from the chaos. Later, outside the auditorium, Malik and Jamal walked toward the parking lot, caps in hand. The evening sun stretched long shadows across the pavement. "Feel surreal, huh?" Jamal said. Malik smiled faintly. "Yeah, but also earned. Everything we went through, it matters. Not just for me, but for everyone who follows." Jamal nodded. "You changed more than your own path. You made a difference. And scouts? They've been calling nonstop." Malik chuckled softly, a mix of pride and fatigue. "I know, but it's not about that anymore. It's about knowing that speaking up works, that fairness can prevail, even in systems built to protect the wrong people." At home, Malik's parents welcomed him with hugs, the weight of worry finally lifting. His mother pressed a small box into his hands, a gift, a symbol of support. His father clapped him on the shoulder, eyes gleaming with pride. "You've earned every bit of this," his father said, "and more." Malik placed the gift aside, looking out the window toward the empty field, recalling the long hours, the shouted words, the scrutiny, and the silent courage it had taken to stand firm. He knew that the scars, emotional, mental, and social, would not vanish immediately, yet he also knew they were proof of resilience. Weeks later, the first letter arrived from a university scout. Malik tore it open, eyes scanning quickly, a scholarship offer, an invitation to join the team, recognition of not just his talent, but his integrity and composure under pressure. The moment was sweet, but tempered with the knowledge of what it had cost him. He walked to his room, holding the letter like a fragile trophy. The walls were quiet now, the echoes of past conflict fading. Malik felt a mix of relief, pride, and solemn recognition that growth often comes from the hardest battles. Later, on the empty field, Malik stood alone, helmet under one arm, gaze fixed on the horizon. The floodlights hummed softly, the turf cool beneath his cleats. He tossed a football in the air, caught it, and pivoted. Every step, every movement, carried the weight of experience, courage, and newfound clarity. Malik exhaled, letting the cool evening air fill his lungs. The storm had passed. Justice had arrived, imperfect but real. The scars remained, yes, but so did the triumph, resilience, and knowledge that he had survived and reshaped the system in his favor. The future stretched before him, bright and uncertain. But Malik felt ready. He had faced fear, endured scrutiny, and refused to be silenced. He had taken a stand, and now he could finally run free. The autumn wind cut across the empty football field, rustling the bleachers and sending crisp leaves skittering across the turf. Malik stood alone, helmet in hand, surveying the space that had been both a battleground and a proving ground. The months of scrutiny, viral videos, hearings, and late-night reflections had left their mark. Yet, here he was, resilient, measured, and ready to move forward. Coach Bradley had officially been removed from the program. His once unassailable authority had crumbled under investigation, witness testimony, and public pressure. Alumni who had praised his toughness now spoke cautiously, distancing themselves from a man whose reputation had fractured publicly. Emails, documents, and video clips that had once been ignored now stood as irrefutable evidence. For the first time, Bradley's power was constrained not by fear, but by accountability. Malik watched the press coverage from home, interviews, headlines, and articles that detailed the chain of events. He didn't revel in the downfall. He wasn't motivated by revenge, but a quiet sense of justice seeped in. The system had finally recognized his truth, and with that recognition came validation. A call came from one of the scouts, voice tinged with excitement. "Malik, we've been tracking your progress. We're impressed, not just by your skill, but by your composure under pressure. The offer still stands. We want you on the team." Malik exhaled, a mix of relief and cautious optimism. "Thank you," he said simply. "I appreciate the opportunity." At school, the program underwent a subtle transformation. Assistant coaches enforced stricter codes of conduct. Mandatory workshops on inclusivity and bias became standard. Players who had once been silent now found a voice, speaking up when they saw unfairness. The culture shifted slowly but noticeably, a ripple effect set in motion by one student's courage. Malik returned to the field that evening. The floodlights buzzed softly as he laced his cleats, the familiar rhythm grounding him. Jamal appeared, tossing a ball lightly in his hands. "You ready?" Jamal asked, a teasing grin breaking through. "Always," Malik replied, catching the ball and spinning it expertly. They ran routes, passed the ball back and forth, laughter mingling with a slap of leather against leather. The field no longer carried fear or scrutiny, only the echoes of hard-won confidence. Later, Malik sat on the bleachers, reflecting on the journey. He thought of sleepless nights, whispered threats, public humiliation, and the weight of responsibility that had pressed on him relentlessly. The emotional cost had been steep. Relationships strained. Some friends drifted away, unable to navigate the storm. But he also recognized growth, resilience, and a newfound clarity about the world's imperfections, and the power of standing up despite them. A group of teammates approached, hesitant but warm. "Thanks, Malik," Jamal said, "for everything. You set a standard for all of us." Malik shook his head, smiling faintly. "We all have to do better. That's the only way things change." By nightfall, the field was empty, the hum of the city beyond the stadium faint in the distance. Malik placed his helmet on the bench, shoulders relaxed, and breathed in the cool air. The fight had been exhausting, but it had mattered. He had spoken truth, faced scrutiny, and endured a system stacked against him, and yet emerged intact, not unscathed, but unbroken. Weeks later, at his first college practice, Malik felt a different weight. This time, it wasn't fear, it wasn't scrutiny, it was expectation tempered by trust. Coaches guided rather than dictated. Teammates collaborated rather than feared. And Malik, carrying the lessons of Jefferson High, stepped onto the field with confidence rooted not just in talent, but in experience, integrity, and perseverance. One afternoon, as he walked off the turf, a young player approached, eyes wide. "I've heard about what you did," the boy said quietly. "Standing up, it gave me courage too." Malik smiled, the memory of countless late nights and anxious moments flashing briefly. "Remember," he said gently, "courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting anyway. And standing for what's right matters more than winning alone." The boy nodded, inspired, and ran off toward the end zone. Malik watched him go, the weight of his own journey reflected in the younger player's stride. The cycle of courage, justice, and accountability had begun anew. As dusk settled, Malik lingered on the sideline, helmet under his arm, hands resting lightly on the rail. The lights flickered softly, illuminating the field like a stage. He thought of Jefferson High, of the viral video, of the countless small moments of fear and endurance. And he knew this truth. Justice, though imperfect, had its own rhythm. The coach's downfall, the program's reckoning, the opportunities restored, and the lives influenced were all part of the balance he had helped tip. Malik exhaled, letting the cool evening air fill his lungs. The field was quiet now, peaceful, and charged with possibility. His journey had left scars, yes, but also proof of resilience, proof that standing up mattered. The whistle of the wind through the stadium echoed faintly, and Malik gripped his helmet. He was ready for the next play, for the next challenge, for life. The field was his.